Good afternoon. To our surviving family members, fellow law enforcement, fire, EMS, and military members, family, and friends. Welcome to the 11th Annual LGBT Fallen Heroes Memorial Service. At this time, can I ask you to stand for the presentation of colors by the Arlington County Police Department's Honor Guard and the singing of our national anthem by Arlington County Police Corporal Jennifer Levy.
Stand by. Colors. Up and tip. Colors. Right shoulder, arms. Ready, cut. Colors. Reset, arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Colors. Right shoulder, arms. Colors. Port, arms. Colors. Ready, step.
Please be seated. I would like to invite Father Jim Hoffman up to the stage for our opening prayer. Father Hoffman is a priest ordained in the Old Catholic tradition and is part of the St. John the Beloved community in the Diocese of the Chesapeake Bay. He's been a longtime supporter and volunteer for the LGBT Fallen Heroes Fund, and his respect for those in uniform comes from a long family history of serving in the military. Father Jim.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Scott and Charter, for this honor. Two statements that are made often as first responders and military perform their duties is hold the line, and I've got your six. In the line, when the one falls, another needs to take the place of that fallen, or the line has to shrink in order to strengthen defense. When you are out in the open, your back is vulnerable. Having it protected in a dangerous or hazardous situation is critical. This realization makes it so much more meaningful when it is said at the loss of someone we love, such as the ones pictured in the lobby or in this memorial here today. When the members of first responders and military use these phrases, they don't use them in saying, "We got everyone's back except for you," or "We will hold the line, but you are a line of one." They say this to all the brothers and sisters in uniform. If they didn't mean the words as a community, it would mean the line is weak. Backs are exposed to danger, and the team and family is weaker as a result. Those words, when true, bring strength. So we strengthen our line as a family and lift this team up because we all deserve the protection and support of family, the one you were born into, the one you choose, or both. You are deserving of support and love. You do deserve all of it. We ask a blessing in this room, not only today, to those we lost, but to those family and friends, and to those who choose to attend this memorial. As we say, we have your back. We are holding the line for you, not excluding anyone. This community needs to support one another to be strong. We offer a strong line, a line of love, compassion, and strength, of a kind, sympathetic ear or word, handshake or hug when needed, to make you and all of us strong. Sadly, we have this memorial every year. Scott and Charger get more information for so many more than we can honor at one service. So today we don't honor only these, but many in our hearts. We stand united and hold tight to you, family or friends, as you come up today and share a part of who your loved and respected ones are, when they were with us and as they remain in your hearts. We lift you up and hold you close. We got your six, not just as you speak and remember today, but from this day forward. We thank you and bless you for your strength in sharing with all of us the lives of these honored.
Thank you, Jim. May 16th, 2003. It's a day that I will never forget. My best friend and coworker, Detective Debbie Arduini, committed suicide. I saw how different her death was treated because she was a lesbian. Her suicide has guided my life in many ways for the past 21 years. It's also a day that eventually led to the holding of this LGBT Fallen Heroes Memorial Service. My name is Scott Gunn, and along with my husband, Charger, co-founded the LGBT Fallen Heroes Fund. The fund was created to honor our LGBT police, fire, EMS, and military members that are no longer with us and ensure their surviving significant others are recognized properly. Due to Deb's suicide, I was introduced to an amazing organization called the Concerns of Police Survivors, or COPS as it's known. The organization takes care of the family and coworkers of police officers killed in the line of duty. And unfortunately, many in this room already know about this organization. I was introduced to them because they sponsor a Traumas of Law Enforcement seminar training throughout the country every year. It was during one of these trainings that, following Deb's suicide, that I had the emotional break that I needed in order to help me process the loss. It's also how I discovered National Police Week. After I experienced my first National Police Week, I knew that I had to start encouraging other officers to start attending. It was and continues to be a very special time. Following that year, members of the LGBT police community started gathering here in Washington, D.C. during Police Week. We supported one another and discussed the many issues we faced in the police world. We met LGBT officers that were suicidal because they thought they were the only one. And we've met officers who lost significant others, but they were in the closet, leaving them to grieve alone. National Police Week became the perfect time to come together. Not only could we meet as a group, we could honor those officers being remembered each year. I cherish each and every Police Week. The early years continued to allow police from around the world to come together to experience National Police Week. We held an international LGBT criminal justice conference in 2008, where we had LGBT officers from 36 states and 5 countries attend. 2010 changed everything. I met a man named Kelly Glossop. He was at Police Week because his husband of over 13 years was killed Christmas Day in the line of duty. It was Missouri State Trooper Dennis Engelhart. Listening to Kelly tell his story made many of us realize that those LGBT heroes that we had lost had surviving significant others that were not being treated the same. They were being ignored, left out, denied the right to grieve. Kelly was not recognized as Dennis' partner, was not allowed to plan the funeral, did not receive any benefits. He lost his home, his vehicles, and his will to live. What happened that year affects me every day. Unfortunately, the loss of Dennis was too much for Kelly to handle. His body started shutting down and became very ill. He stayed sick for many years and was never able to return to DC so we could recognize him properly. He died November 16, 2015. We honored both Kelly and Dennis 8 years ago at this very memorial service. Even though we were never able to bring Kelly to the memorial service, we did not stop. We started the exhaustive search to find other LGBT heroes that have died in the line of duty. The first officer we found was Amanda Hallworth. She was a Miami-Dade police officer that lost her life while executing a felony warrant in January of 2011. I saw how much this memorial service meant to her immediate family and the other LGBT police that were in attendance. It was a time we recognized all those individuals not recognized during the formal memorial service. In 2013, we found Master Corporal Sandy Rogers. Sandy was a 28-year veteran police officer from the Aiken Department of Public Safety in South Carolina. She was gunned down responding to a citizen's request to check a suspicious vehicle. Sandy had been with her significant other, Francis, for over 23 years. Francis was also police. At Sandy's official memorial service in South Carolina, Francis was asked to step aside because she was not considered immediate family. We brought Francis here to Washington, D.C. and recognized her properly. After hearing that story and seeing how much this memorial service meant to Francis, I knew we would continue to hold this special service as long as we had instances like that. In 2014, we expanded this service to not only include police officers, but firefighters, EMS, and members of the military, because we realized the surviving significant others of those professions were being treated differently other than their straight counterparts. We also expanded the line of duty deaths to any LGBT hero that is no longer with us, because it's not how they died that we celebrate, it's how they lived their life. We continue the search for our heroes. In the past 12 years, we have honored 60 heroes, and we continue today where we will honor 9 more. In doing all of the research for this memorial service, I've learned that many members of the LGBT police, fire, EMS, and military community have done amazing things. Every hero that we have honored excelled at their professions. All of them represented the LGBTQ community remarkably. The heroes that we are honoring this year share that quality as well. This year, we will honor St. Croix County Sheriff's Deputy Katie Lysing, Broward County Institute of Public Safety Dean Linda Wood, Sandoval County Sheriff's Deputy Nathan Kerbel, Boston Police Officer Joseph Nagel, Fort Worth Police Officer Robert Mills, Staff Sergeant Frank Kaiser, Chicago Police Commander Nancy Littman, Chicago District Chief Paramedic Pat Sierra, and California Department of Corrections Thanatologist Mark Hartness. This year, in trying to decide who to ask to provide some opening remarks, I had been told that one of my former chiefs of police was going to be in attendance. I immediately knew I wanted to ask him to be our keynote. I've always wanted the opportunity to publicly thank him for something he probably never realized meant so much. I worked for the Anne Arundel County Police Department for almost 27 years in Maryland. I retired in 2016. All of that time that I was been hosting this memorial service and hosting other LGBT events for National Police Week, I never had any supervisors attend. That all changed when I got a new police chief who happened to bring a very special chief of staff with him. At the time, Chief of Staff Amal Awad was openly out on our department. I sent her the information for this memorial service and asked if she would like to attend. To my surprise, she immediately said yes and said she would like to bring the chief of police. I was shocked and nervous, to say the least. I had not met the new chief, and other than reaching out to a couple friends that worked at his previous department, I did not know him. This memorial service was originally held in DuPont Circle outside. The chief of police and the chief of staff did come to that memorial service that year, 10 years ago to the day. I can tell you it's always been one of the most special moments to see my chief attending the service. My husband and I also had the chance to have our picture taken with the chief. It was one of my most favorite pictures and was posted in the department on their social media. We have shared that picture in the program. Can I have now Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis to the stage? Chief Davis currently serves as the 11th Police Chief for the Fairfax County Police Department. He's also led the Baltimore City Police Department as the 39th Police Commissioner, and prior to Baltimore City, Chief Davis led my agency, the Anne Arundel County Police Department. He also retired as Assistant Chief from the Prince George's County Police Department. Chief Davis, I want to thank you for showing up at that memorial service in DuPont Circle. It meant more than you can imagine. I also want to thank you for always supporting the LGBTQ+ community. Having a chief of police showing support certainly sets a tone from the top. It matters, it makes a difference, it goes a long way for us in the community. Chief Davis.
Thank you all, and Scott, I do remember that day very well, and if I didn't remember that day, I saw the picture in the program of me, you, and Charger. You seem to look a lot better 10 years later, and me the opposite. So I blame that on the stressors of the job, but it's an honor to be here, and Scott, I said, what are you looking for, Scott? I have a lot to say sometimes, and I don't want to ramble, and I want to be on point, and he recommended to me that I keep it light, and he also reminded me that brevity is a gift. It's a gift that we don't always have, myself included. So on the keep it light side, I was finishing up a Mother's Day yesterday with my wife, and people were leaving our home, and we were sharing just a moment together, and she asked me what my schedule was like today, on Monday, and I told her that I was honored to be speaking at this LGBT Fallen Officers Memorial event, and I also had the distinct honor to represent our police department by reading names of fallen heroes at the candlelight vigil tonight. So all in one day, and I said to her, kind of with an air of cockiness, I said, in your wildest dreams, can you believe that on one day, after going to Police Week for all these decades, that I've been asked to say a few words at both these events? And she looked at me kind of puzzled, and I said, I mean, seriously, and her name's Lisa, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that we were going to come to this moment? And she said, Kevin, you're not in my wildest dreams. So that's a true story. Feel free to use it. But it is an honor to be here. I know there are survivors, families of our fallen heroes here this week, and it's a solemn week. It's serious. I know it's hard, but I hope you all, and I'm sure you're all taking the opportunity to celebrate the lives of our fallen heroes as well, and there's no doubt that you are. As Scott said, it's been exactly a decade since I attended the LGBT Fallen Heroes Memorial Service when it was held outdoors at DuPont Circle. I remember the seriousness, the camaraderie, and frankly, the joy associated with that sunny day, not unlike today. I think a perfect replica of today. And those of us, I'm reminded that those of us who choose a vocation in law enforcement, and Father Jim, I do believe, I know you certainly are in a vocation, and I think policing, at least in this country, is a close second. This is a vocation as well, and it's the only way we can get meaning out of what we do. If we look at it as a job or even a profession, we're going to fall short. But if it's a calling, if it's a vocation, if it's something we do because we truly want to help others and improve society, then you'll never have a bad day at work. And that's how I feel. But we also realize and accept the high expectations, the scrutiny, and occasionally the criticisms that accompany our unique role in a free and democratic society. Other countries, those who serve in law enforcement, aren't burdened with the higher expectations of policing in a free and democratic society. It's a lot harder to do it here in America, but that's okay, and it's necessarily so. After all, our profession can lawfully take your freedom and under certain circumstances lawfully take a life. And no other vocation, profession that I know of in this country can do those things. Of all the professions in America, and there are so many, one has stood at the forefront for at least the last decade plus in advancing awareness and acceptance of the issues impacting the LGBTQ community, more than all others, in my opinion. And I look around and I try to pay attention, and I'm still a believer in reading a newspaper and actually holding it in my hands. So as I look around at the rest of what the rest of the country is doing in so much as embracing beyond words the LGBTQ community, I think policing, and this might come to a surprise for those outside of policing, leads the way. I think we do it better than anyone. We don't do it perfectly. We certainly haven't arrived yet, but I think we do it better than anyone. We recognize and talk about police officers, we recognize and talk about what was once kept in the dark and ignored with us cops. And by cops, I mean federal, I mean state, I mean local. With us cops, it's now okay to say things out loud when, at least at the beginning of my career, probably Scott's career, it wasn't. But it's okay to say it out loud now. I think we do that better than others. And we're at a unique place to even do better. We, and sometimes, the big bad and occasionally maligned police serve as an example to the rest of the nation. I'm proud of that, and I know you're proud of that as well. So we're leading the way. Others are watching us. I think they're observing. And I think once everyone else sees that the police are in the process of figuring this out with more vigor and enthusiasm and openness and transparency, I think we can set yet another example for everyone in all of our communities, no matter where we're from in this great big country. So that might be my cue. The music, are you cueing me, Scott? But it really is an honor to be here today and just to see your faces, and thank you for allowing me to share a few words, and thank you, Scott and Charger, for taking this on a decade plus, 12 years ago now. I know it means so much to you, and you mean so much to everybody in this room. Thank you.
And just as a side note, Chief, I had to ask you to come. Last year we had Deputy Chief Tracy Reed from the Fairfax County Fire Department speak, so I had to give the police department their fair shot. Can I please have K-9 Deputy Sheriff Fred Mangine to the stage? He was Katie Lysing's patrol partner and would be sharing her story.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Scott said, thank you for the introduction, Scott. Deputy Fred Mangine with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office up in western Wisconsin. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office, on behalf of Wisconsin as a whole. Thank you for celebrating Kate. The rest of the heroes honored here. This is all extremely humbling. I've been asked to come up here today to tell you a story. It's a story about a little girl with a big heart that grew into a tremendously strong woman, a woman that became a mother and a legend right in front of our eyes. She was born Katie Stevens to Chris and Roger Stevens in Scottsbluff, Nebraska on January 10th, 1994. Kate was raised in a small town of Shadron, Nebraska with her sister Jordan. She was an athlete, playing golf and basketball throughout her childhood, and eventually going on to have several scholarships to competitively play in college. She accepted a golf scholarship to Black Hills State in South Dakota, where she earned her degree. And in 2015, while attending college, she met the love of her life, Courtney Lysing. Kate went on to graduate in 2016. Shortly after, on October 7th of 2017, Courtney and Katie eloped to Sevierville, Tennessee to be married with a small group of friends and family. After being married, the two went to travel the country as newlywed partners with their dogs Ranger and Miller. The family camped as often as possible, loved going from national park to national park. They actually started their journey out living in Kings Canyon National Park in Central California there, in a small camper for a year while Court worked in the park and Kate worked in the gift shop. Katie and Courtney made their way back to South Dakota once again for Courtney to work on Mount Rushmore. This is where Katie became law enforcement certified, and in 2020, she started her journey out with the Pennington County Sheriff's Office out of Rapid City, South Dakota. Kate developed her smooth, reassuring style of policing there. She was kind to everyone, even when they were unkind to her. She was trained well there, and when an opportunity for promotion popped up in Courtney's home state of Wisconsin, Kate was immediately supportive, and the two found themselves on the move once again in their new home, or to find their new home in St. Croix County, Wisconsin with us. Kate immediately excelled in our field training program, went on to work solo patrol on night shift. She handled herself well. She treated everyone as if they were her own family, and she quickly became a familiar face within our community. I gained respect for Kate early on in her time here. She handled herself well in the most violent and uncertain situations. Many times over the last year, I found myself dealing with people that made the decision to violently resist law enforcement. Some of these times, I started out by myself there. Sure enough, each of these times, seemingly out of nowhere, a pair of little gloved hands would come flying in without hesitation. There was always a sense of relief when this would happen because Kate was as tough as they come, knew we had it under control. That's what she did. Kate put everyone at ease. On January of 2023, Siler was born, and Katie took on a new form to all of us. She was a mother. It was apparent to everyone when talking to her how much she loved him. My heart was so full, just seeing her face light up about him. We all know it's a beauty that only mothers have. Those first months as a parent are hard, especially working nights, not being able to come help out at home. Kate never complained about getting off at 3 a.m., switching over to mom mode, always missing sleep, and then putting her badge and gun back on, hitting the streets with us again at night. It's just what she did. She was loving, she was a warrior. That was Katie. Our sweet Kate will be dearly missed by all that have known her. Her loss is grieved by all who put on the uniform. She was our sister, our partner. She's our friend and we love her. The world was lucky to have her for the short time that she was here, will ever and forever be disadvantaged without her. She had so much more in her. There's so much more good to give, impacts to have. She had a son to raise and a wife to love. Our profession is a sacred one. You don't become a protector, you're born one. Katie will always be one of us. She's a hero through and through. Thank you very much for letting me share her story with you.
Thank you, Fred. Joining us today is Kate's wife, Courtney, sister Morgan, sister Brittany, and patrol partner, Anna. Can I please have Kate Kamenar to the stage? She is Linda Wood's wife and will be sharing their story.
Thank you, Scott. Right side up is better. Hello, everyone. I want to thank all of you here today, and especially Scott and Charger and everyone involved in the LGBT Fallen Heroes Memorial for including my wife, Linda Ann Wood. In this ceremony. It's my honor and privilege to let you know a small bit about Linda. She was born on January 17th, 1962, in Plainfield, New Jersey, and she died 12 days shy of what would have been her 60th birthday in Davie, Florida. Linda's life was filled with achievements that manifested the values, principles, and qualities at Linda's core. I met Linda in 1988, and over the decades, Linda displayed immense courage, determination, humility, humor, kindness, loyalty, fairness, and justice, but above all, her commitment to service to others in small and large ways. Her goal was to be available and to make a positive impact in all that she did. In high school, Linda wanted and dreamed of becoming an attorney, but her path led her in a different direction. It led her into corrections and law enforcement training. Instead of being an attorney, she put herself through college at Trenton State, majoring in criminal justice and taking mostly evening classes so that she could learn from people with real-life experiences. Many of her classes were filled with people from law enforcement taking night classes to complete their degree. Her college internship, no surprise, turned into a full-time position with the New Jersey Department of Corrections in 1982. After outstanding early career achievements, in 1992, a senior administrator encouraged her to apply for a temporary assignment with the National Institute of Corrections in Longmont, Colorado. She was selected, and the division chief there quickly put Linda in charge of two key initiatives: leadership training for first-term sheriffs across the country, and second, policy and program development to address the surge of influx of mentally ill persons into the nation's jails. During her 3-year term there, Linda received the National Institute of Corrections Director's Award for her accomplishments, an achievement that no one had done as a temporary assignment. In 1995, Linda was recruited to the Broward Sheriff's Office in Broward County, where she assumed the position of Assistant Director of Community Corrections. And in 1998, she joined the Institute of Public Safety at Broward College as Assistant Dean for Professional and Executive Development. Linda became the Dean of the Institute in 2007, and this position in our county is equivalent to being a chief of a police department. Linda loved the Institute, and her special love was the police academy. Here are some excerpts that I wanted to share from Linda's message to all incoming cadets. Your criminal justice law enforcement academy experience will be one of the most memorable events of your lifetime. Our mission is to continuously maintain the highest standards in criminal justice and law enforcement training for all our cadets, inspiring all cadets to be the best that they can be. Your training will be vigorous, challenging, and demanding, and failure is not an option. Linda's life mirrored these words. overcoming the impacts of family violence and addiction, trauma, and sexual abuse. As the daughter of a World War II Marine with PTSD, she learned to get up when she was knocked down. She learned to stand firm for her principles and never to cave in to the threats or attempts to intimidate her. For example, a police chief's son failed to pass a requirement for graduation from the academy. A department minion called Linda and ordered her to overlook the rules, or else she would not be safe in their jurisdiction. Linda refused. Neither pressure nor intimidation could sway Linda's determination to do the right thing. Throughout her career, Linda encountered many challenges working in a male-dominated field because of her gender and her sexual orientation. She refused to let bias and discrimination distract her from her mission to be of service and make a difference in her personal and professional life, as well as in her public service in the community. Another telling example of Linda's character and strength is reflected in an encounter that I personally witnessed. A so-called friend, a Broward Sheriff's Office deputy, told Linda, I don't know why, but told Linda that she could take her to the ground. Linda calmly responded that she might get her down, but she would get back up. That was the end of that conversation, but that was Linda. Linda faced head-on all that she did, and she did all she could learn from all of her experiences, achievements as well as setbacks. Sadly, Linda was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer on February 14th, 2020. The cancer had already spread from her pancreas to her bones. It was a terminal diagnosis, with 2 to 6 months to live being the average life expectancy for that diagnosis. The treatment option was a 5-drug chemotherapy delivered over 46 hours every 2 weeks for the rest of her life, and radiation to fight the cancer on her bones. She told her oncologist, Dr. NK, she would refuse to die, and Linda did her utmost to be stronger than cancer. Her courageous battle with cancer included more than 70 chemotherapy treatments, 30 radiations that targeted her shoulder, her femur, and her hip, as well as a radical surgery to insert a rod into her femur and a screw to hold her femur to her hip. Pancreatic cancer is, as she would say, a hard one, and it is even more horrible when you start treatment during a global pandemic. To counter the enforced isolation, Linda shared her thoughts, feelings, and challenges, as well as the gifts of cancer, in a private Facebook group. The group was formed to keep the hundreds of people who wanted to know about how Linda was doing and who cared deeply for her, about her treatment and how she was holding up. It was a two-way street. Linda shared her posts that inspired everyone who read them, and people contributed sayings and stories to help support and encourage her. Everyone benefited from Linda's honest and emotion-filled posts that displayed her as well as her vulnerability and courage. Linda continued to work tirelessly during most of her cancer journey as best she could, and her community service didn't end with her diagnosis. The mayor of our town, the town of Davie, asked Linda to serve on the search committee for the chief of police. Linda participated fully in that search, including a full day of candidate interviews while she was receiving chemotherapy infusion and feeling terribly sick. Linda's lived will was unmatched. She got back up countless times in the 34 months between her cancer diagnosis and her death. Intolerable pain and seizures from cancer in her brain forced her to end the fight on December 31st, 2022, and she was gone 5 days later. Linda worried that she would not be remembered after she passed, but everyone she shared her life with and her accomplishments and her wisdom, assured her that she would never be forgiven by those who knew and had the honor to know and to work with her. Linda entered my life in 1988, and I was blessed to have found the love of my life in her. We were a team for 34 years. She was a hero in life to me and to many others, and in spirit, she is now an angel. I want to thank all of you for all that you do and for being here, and for everyone who's here for all that you have been through and will go through. What we do matters. And as Linda would say, when we get knocked down, we get back up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Also joining us today is Kate's friend, Betsy, and good friend, Special Agent John Savecki. Can I please have Josh Weber to the stage? Josh is Nate's partner and will be sharing their story.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Weber, and I am Nate Kerbell's partner. I debated on whether to say I am Nate's partner or say I was his partner. I choose to say I am his partner because although he is gone, in my heart, he is still the love of my life. I must say that being here today is bittersweet. While it is an honor and a privilege to be here, it is also incredibly somber. I think our fallen heroes being honored today for their service and sacrifice. I also want to thank Scott and everyone involved in organizing this event. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with you all about the love of my life, Nate Kerbell. I'd like to share with you both who Nate was as a person as well as who he was as a police officer. He entered the field for all of the right reasons. He was moral, just, and genuinely cared about helping the communities he served. We frequently spoke about his work, both his achievements and his struggles. As an officer, he was particularly passionate about protecting those with mental illness and protecting animals. I used to work in the mental health field, and Nate would always pick my brain about how to respond to those struggling with mental illness. In his spare time, he also took multiple training courses for officers on how to respond to those suffering from mental illness. I can recall a story from work that he told me that I'd like to share with you. He shared with me how he and multiple colleagues responded to a call where a woman was causing a disturbance in her neighborhood. Unfortunately, his colleagues were very hostile and aggressive with her, which only aggravated the situation. Due to Nate's education and training, he was quickly able to suspect they were dealing with someone suffering from mental illness. They wanted to arrest her, but Nate could tell she needed help, and he convinced his colleagues to let him speak with her one-on-one. He spoke to her human to human. During their conversation, he learned she was suffering from bipolar disorder, had lost her insurance, and could no longer afford her medication, which resulted in the public episode. Nate was able to get her transported to the hospital, made sure her family was contacted, and even followed up to make sure she was going to be okay. Knowing Nate was able to approach the situation with clarity and compassion and get this individual the help that she needed made me so proud of him. This is what serving your community is truly all about. This was the type of officer he was, and I'll never forget when he shared that story with me. It's also important for me today to address some of Nate's struggles in his career. Unfortunately, Nate faced adversity in the workplace due to both his personal oath to doing what is right as well as his sexual orientation. Nate did not have many friends within the departments he worked for. Sadly, at times, he witnessed colleagues violating the rights of citizens and engaging in misconduct, which he reported. While this was the right thing to do, it was to his detriment as it negatively affected his rapport with his colleagues. I'm sad to say that Nate was ostracized and bullied at work for being gay. He sought help within the department, but was ignored. He also sought help from outside organizations to no avail. When Nate and I met, he wasn't a police officer yet, but it was his dream since childhood. I witnessed him reach his dream, and I am so proud of him for that. It was devastating to witness what his work as a police officer was doing to him, not even because of what he saw and experienced in the line of work as a first responder, but because of how he was treated in the workplace. He went from being happy about achieving his dream career to crying almost every day because of the treatment he received. No one should have to endure what he did, especially in the workplace, and especially when you're wearing a badge and putting your life on the line every day. My heart broke for him and still does. Outside of work, Nate maintained a tough exterior, but inside he was a cuddly teddy bear. He was a devoted partner to me and a loving dog dad. He loved me and our dog Maggie more than anything in the world, and we felt that love. Nate took care of us and did everything to ensure we had a beautiful life. When I first met Nate, I was very young. I was only 19 and very lost and scared in life. After dating for some time, we eventually fell in love, and Nate did absolutely everything to help me in my life. For the first time, I felt safe, protected, and unafraid because of Nate. Nate was a lover and a giver and had a heart of gold. He always used to say, "I just want you and Maggie to be happy." He used to ask me, "Do I give you a good life?" To which I always responded, "The best." Without Nate's love and support and his giving nature, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I have in my life. Nate was so proud of me and believed in me, and he was my biggest supporter and always let me know that. I hope I'm still making him proud. My life with Nate, those were the best years of my life. I have deeply struggled with being happy since losing him. And I feel the best years of my life have already passed me by, and I'm still so young. Nate should still be here. I miss his infectious laugh, his smile, his eyes, the silly voice he spoke to me in, our weekly dinner and a movie date nights, and my favorite, falling asleep watching the Golden Girls together. Since losing Nate, I do feel an irreplaceable hole in my heart, and I feel like half of my soul is gone. There is a saying that goes, "Grief is love with no place to go," and I certainly feel that. I grieve Nate every single day of my life. Even over 2 years later, I still cry many days. Grief has turned my life into the performance of a lifetime, I feel. It's thrown me into a role, a character, that I've learned to rehearse and perform on command. I smile, I laugh, I tell myself and I tell the world that I'm okay, but inside I am broken. While living without him brings unspeakable pain, it is in a way a privilege to grieve him as much as I do, because I love him so much and he was so special and deserves to always be on my mind and be remembered. I often feel angry at the universe that this is reality. I want to give praise and a massive shout out to Nate's parents, Rich and Claudia, who are here today, and who have been there for me through everything and continue to show me their love and support. I don't know what I'd do without them. I love them dearly, more than words could ever express, and I am beyond thankful to have them in my life. Although Nate is gone, I cherish the time we had together. Being Nate's partner was a true honor, and it is without a doubt what I'm most proud of in my life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to me, for letting me share a little bit about my Nate with you and our relationship. And I find solace in knowing I am not alone in this journey of loss and grief, and I give all the love that I have to give to all of you. Thank you so much.
As Josh said, also joining us is Nate's parents and good friend Matt Holmes. Can I please have Greg Wilcox to the stage? Greg is Joe Nagel's husband and will be sharing their story.
Good afternoon. First, let me start by thanking Scott and Charger for their work to honor our officers, Dave McCullen for bringing Joe's name to Scott, and Chris Murphy, who has been by my side through this entire journey as a friend, as my COVID +1, and for the past 2 years as my partner. It is an honor and a privilege to be here, to meet other families, and to talk about Joe and tell a little bit of our story. As Scott said, my name is Greg Wilcox. My life partner, Joseph V. Nagel Jr., police officer with the Boston Police Department for 30 years, died by suicide on August 4th, 2019. Joe had beautiful blue eyes, a great smile, an infectious laugh, and the best Boston accent. He was both a great man and a great police officer. And while not legally married, Joe was my husband in heart and spirit. He was my partner and my best friend. We were together for 27.5 years. Joe was one of 6 children, an Irish Catholic boy born and raised in South Boston. Yes, that's Southie. To the best of my knowledge, he had at least 2 run-ins with Whitey Bulger and his crew. He was a child of the 70s. He loved disco and soul music and could dance at a wedding or a party like nobody's business. He never left the house unless he looked his best. And I know he's going to get me for this one, but first in his Adidas Gazelles and matching Champion sweatshirts and ball caps, later in head-to-toe Under Armour or a Bugatti shirt and expensive jeans and shoes. I could easily talk for hours about Joe and our life together, and I'll share just a few moments of highlights and laughs. Joe and I met in 1992. A mutual friend introduced us at a bar in Cambridge. Joe was out with his friends, a Mass State Trooper, a member of the U.S. State Department, a local firefighter, and a banker. It was like the village people had come to life. He introduced himself with a wave, a smile from under his hat, and a quiet hi. Within a year of meeting, Joe and I were living together in the Charlestown Navy Yard overlooking Old Ironsides. We loved being in the city and all that it offered, but by 1998 moved to the suburbs just north of Boston and quickly settled into our home of 100 years. We shared a lot of interest, working on our house and in the yard, having dinner at our favorite restaurants, getting to know the staff and the owners, and trust me, we only needed to text a bartender, and we had 2 seats waiting when we arrived. We liked to travel, anywhere in New England, San Diego in the winter, Texas, Florida, Ireland, and Italy. And a funny story about Ireland, I think this was in 2016, after landing at Shannon Airport and seeing the cliffs of Moher on a bright, sunny April morning, Joe told me to drive and that he would navigate. I knew we were going to see the Burren, but we ended up in the tiny town of Kilfenora. He had researched and found Nagel's Bar. That's just how he operated. I used to travel a lot for work, and every time I said I had a business trip coming up, it became, at the very least, a long weekend for us. Vacation allowed Joe to escape the challenges of work and to be totally at ease. Joe was not close with his family, but he sure loved to spend time with mine, especially at the holidays and special occasions. We also really loved our rare quiet evenings at home, especially with our dog Taylor, having a pizza, watching a game or a movie. We had a really good time together, and when I think of that time together, especially later in life, I think of Joe's mantra. So you've all heard of go big or go home. Well, Joe's was go bigger or just don't go. As I said, I could talk for hours about travels and concerts like U2. I'm a huge U2 fan, and every time they came, there were tickets waiting. The same thing with Elton John or great dinners out. Like all couples, we certainly had our share of challenges, our good and our bad times, our disagreements and arguments, but that's not how I choose to remember Joe. Our life together, because our life together, the good far outweighed the bad. Joe joined the Boston Police in 1989. In fact, I have the certificate from his last day at the police academy, dated August 4th, exactly 30 years to the day that he took his life. Joe's career at the Boston Police spanned a number of units: mobile ops, drug control, media relations, and prior to his death as an accident investigator. I only knew a few of the people that he worked with, but there's no doubt he was very well liked across the department. He worked hard, always doing a detail or working overtime. His favorite times were working during the holidays on Newbury Street in the Back Bay or at Fenway Park. Funny thing, there were many games that my best friend and I were let in through the side gate at Fenway to enjoy the game and have a few beers. Joe liked it. He knew we were safe, not out causing trouble, or so he thought. Joe really loved being a police officer, even when it was his most challenging. He was very proud of his career at the Boston Police and very proud of being on the Thin Blue Line. He always donated to fundraisers and officers and their families in need. When I met Joe, he was working in the anti-gang violence unit. I can't tell you how cool it was to be dating a police officer. I'm sure being a gay cop was difficult, but I only learned recently how badly Joe was harassed in the 90s for being gay. He never shared that with me. He shielded me from most, if not all, the bad stuff that the police officers endure. I didn't realize exactly what being a significant other to a police officer would entail over all those years. I never feared the phone call or the knock on the door. Only one time, in fact, was Joe brought home by fellow officers. It was in 2008. He was hit by a suspect on a motorized mini bike while he was on his bicycle patrolling the Fenway neighborhood. He suffered significant shoulder injuries, which resulted in 2 major operations. He was out of work for a few years, and when he finally returned to work in 2013, he was never the same. He had actually been hired to work for Major League Baseball as an authenticator at Fenway Park. He was going to be one of those guys that logged a used ball or bat so the collectors knew it was the real deal. He was to have started that part-time job on the Thursday after he died. It was his step towards retirement. People are finally talking about the epidemic of suicide amongst first responders, and given that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought it only appropriate to speak about Joe's suicide. What I've learned is that Joe likely suffered from depression and internal pain, and suicide was his solution to ending that pain. It was a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I talk openly about Joe's suicide. I'm confident that in some way, Joe sent all the help that he didn't get to me, be it from Boston Police peer support, Survivors of Blue Suicide, which I'm a member of the Survivors Advisory Council, and Concerns of Police Survivors. I have the honor of telling our story to other survivors and speaking at Traumas for Law Enforcement trainings. It's important to note that the Boston Police Department was one of the first in the nation to recognize those officers who died by suicide, placing a memorial at headquarters. This was done in the late summer of 2020. The commissioner at the time, Willie Gross, a classmate of Joe's, made it his personal mission. I've worked very hard not to focus on how Joe died because it happened and I can't change that. Rather, I try to focus on how he and how we lived. All the photos show a happy, funny, and kind man. There's a balance in moving forward for all of us in this room. Working through grief and trauma while trying to live a happy life, which is what I know Joe would want. It's what all of our heroes want for us. I honor Joe by keeping some of our traditions, like decorating the house in white lights at Christmas, going to our favorite restaurants, but also by starting new traditions like traveling to new places. I honor Joe by telling our story and hoping that in doing so, at least one life is saved from suicide. I say his name every day. I learned from early on from a friend that you never get over this, you just move forward, integrating the loss into my life and making it a chapter in my book. I've accepted that I'll never know why this happened. I was able to download our entire text message string into a PDF. It's over 3,600 pages long. I scanned the entire document. There were mundane texts about what to have for dinner, apologies for drinking or an argument. There were pictures from vacations, holidays, sporting events, and loads of selfies. There were lots of heart emojis, but there was no why. Those questions will not be answered, and I had to make peace with that. As we go forward today, I ask that each of you honor the lives of our fallen heroes by living our lives, allowing our loved ones to see life through us, knowing that they are walking beside us, to smile, to laugh, occasionally to pause, and most importantly, to love. Thank you.
Joining us also today is Greg's partner, Chris, and Dave McClellan, who brought his name to me so we could honor him today. Can I please have Celso Alcala to the stage? He is Robert's husband and will be sharing their story.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to everyone that's involved in this. Ever since getting here, I've been overwhelmed, and it's been truly emotional. I met Robert almost 25 years ago. We met, and we never left each other's side. We would have celebrated 25 years together this month on the 21st. We were married in 2014, and DC has a place in our heart because in 2014 it was not legal to get married in Texas. So DC was one of his favorite places to visit, so we got married outside the grounds of the Jefferson Memorial. So I see it and I think so much of it, and now I can visit it and, almost kind of visit our memories there. One of the biggest things about Robert was that he was a dedicated officer, did everything by the books, and he'd always wanted to be a police officer since he was about 14. His uncle was a police officer, and he knew that that's what he wanted to do. He knew that enlisting in the Army was probably one good way of putting that on a resume, and so he did so. He served in the Army for about 7 months, came back home at that time, and applied for the jailer's position at the Dallas County. There he went on to become a sheriff at the Dallas County, and then later applied to Fort Worth Police Department, where he did eventually retire. But while there, he wanted to be in everything. So from pictures, he was in the motor unit. He trained himself to be on Air One, to get experience there. And then he pioneered what he could to get the CVE unit started in Fort Worth. So the groundwork, the foundation of that unit was his dedication to making sure that the roadways, the highways of that city had someone to police it. And that brought him so much joy. It went from 2 people doing it to now I think they have like 6 officers that split the whole city. And that is also something that he enjoyed, was training people. So there was other departments within the Dallas-Fort Worth area that were also looking to do new units, and one of those obviously was the highways that are being built around that Dallas-Fort Worth area, that he brought in other officers so he could share his knowledge. And that was probably one of the biggest things that he had a passion for, was teaching. He was also the TIU instructor, so they looked to him to do the best sobriety field tests. And so, funny thing is that he goes, "Oh, bring your friends," so we could do the field sobriety tests. We just need a lot of people. And I would tell my friends, and make sure that you tell them, we've got the good liquor. We've got to use liquor. We can't use beer on these guys because we can't get them there fast enough. So I would tell my friends, and that was another way of, introducing Robert to my friends, but in a quirky way, because no one talks to each other at the very beginning. After 4 drinks, everyone's best friends. So that was just something that I shared with him, and that, that was a good memory that I would have for, the 2 of us. And so that made it special as well. He was by the book. He did things by the book, so he endured some intolerance, some bullying, and yes, it was always by a sergeant that thought that he could make those jokes with a gay police officer, and he didn't need to make jokes with anyone else and to emasculate him because he was gay and just happened to be a guy. But he did it by the book. He reported it, and that sergeant was removed and got training. But you never know if that training goes to their minds and to their hearts. But they loved him because he was hardworking and he did everything by the book, and you could always count on Mills to be there and at their side. Like I said, we would have celebrated 25 years. But what we did know was that we both wanted kids. And so we knew that. So we started making those decisions, and we came to the decision that in the CPS, which is, family services, that there are plenty of kids that deserve a home, and that's why I adopted that little one over there. And Robert was a dedicated family man, and so much that I was a stay-at-home dad actually for 5 years, so that we could promise Noah that we would give him everything that maybe he wouldn't have going through the system or not being adopted. So we made sure that he had everything that he could ever want. I just want to briefly wrap up by just saying that he loved with a passion, and he was dedicated, and if his body had allowed him to do it longer, he would have done more. And he stayed dedicated to the very end. Thank you.
Also joining us is their son Noah and Celso's mother Linda. Can I please have Justin Harker to the stage? Justin is Frank's husband and will be sharing their story.
Hi, everyone. You probably expected me to say howdy or something like that, right? Thank you, Scott and Charger, and everyone with the LGBT Fallen Heroes Fund for the opportunity to honor my late husband, Frank Kaiser. His story is one of extraordinary bravery, unwavering duty, and the profound human cost of war. Driven by the desire to serve his country and to protect the freedom he held so dear, Frank enlisted in the Air Force Air National Guard and became a part of Operation Enduring Freedom. As an aerospace ground equipment ranger, Frank's commitment to his mission, even in the face of danger, was a testament to his character and his dedication to the cause. While he was deployed, he also worked in security forces, protecting his fellow service members and the equipment vital to their mission. Frank achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant and was awarded the Airman's Medal by the Air Force for exceptional bravery and leadership. One of his most remarkable acts was single-handedly rescuing a man from a burning vehicle, demonstrating his heroism under pressure. Over the course of his years in service, the war took its toll. He was injured by shrapnel during the constant mortar bombardment of his base in Kandahar and sustained a back injury. He sustained a back injury that would have leave him with a disability that got worse over time. He also took on the burden of PTSD, as severe an injury as the visible wounds he sustained while in service. After Frank completed his enlistment, he decided to pursue a career in law enforcement. Despite his service-related injuries, he remained committed to his dream of becoming a police officer. He went to college and graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice while serving as an armed private security officer in Madison, Wisconsin. Unfortunately, Frank's worsening condition forced him to reluctantly withdraw his application to become a law enforcement officer. But instead, he decided to start up his own business. Prior to his service in the Air Force, Frank had learned leatherworking while he worked on the Woodside Ranch in his hometown of Mauston, Wisconsin. He decided to use that skill to start a business in saddle making. It wasn't long before his rocking case saddlery business became a success, and he soon had a backlog of orders. After working several years in Wisconsin, we both decided it was time for a change, and we moved to Arizona. Frank had friends that were serving at the Army base in Sierra Vista, Fort Huachuca, and after visiting a few times, we decided on a ranch house in Whetstone, which is a few miles away from the base. Frank grew his leatherworking business from there. Frank was more than just a victim of PTSD. He was a hero who served his country with honor. He was a master craftsman, dedicated to his work and passionate about creating things of beauty and value. But despite his many strengths, the pain and trauma of his experiences eventually became too much to bear. In June last year, Frank made the heartbreaking decision to take his own life. His struggle with PTSD and his ultimate tragic end are a stark reminder of the very real and very serious challenges that many of our veterans face every day. I greatly appreciate this memorial service and the support of family and friends. It helps to know that others care and share the burden. It is important that we all play a part in supporting our veteran police, first responders, soldiers, and their families and friends by offering to share their burden and by giving them our time, understanding, and empathy. Frank understood the importance of sharing the burden. At times when I was facing my own adversity, Frank would recite a poem to me that he first heard in high school. It resonates with me today as I speak about Frank's life. And I'd like to read an excerpt from this poem. It's called The Dash by Linda Ellis. It speaks of the importance of living a life of purpose and meaning between the days of our birth and death. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most was that dash between those years. Frank filled his years with service to his country and the pursuit of the American dream. He was my all-American cowboy, a man of character and courage who faced life's challenges with quiet resolve. Today I honor him, as I know he'd want us to honor all of those who have served and sacrificed everything so that we can be safe and free.
Thank you, Justin. Also joining us today is Justin's mom and stepdad and good friends Scott Scherndorf and Bill Mitchell. Can I please have Christopher to the stage? Chris is Nancy's son and will be sharing their story.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Scott, and the LGBT Fallen Heroes Fund for having us here today to recognize my mom, Nancy Lippman, who spent 30 years with the Chicago Police Department. Before I talk about her, I do want to recognize her favorite people in the world who are here today, Joanne, her spouse, and partner for many years, her 3 grandchildren, Matthew, Abby, and Sean. her daughter-in-law, and my wife Diana, and her brother-in-law Gene. Sorry, thought I'd get farther. My mom joined the Chicago Police Department in the early 1980s, a female, lesbian, single mother. You may not all know this, but hers was not exactly the face of the Chicago Police Department in the early 1980s. While growing up, as many kids do, I considered her my hero in every way, a feeling that was bolstered by the fact that she was a police officer. It wasn't until much later in life that I realized the depth of her role in changing so many of the preconceived notions of her fellow officers, and hopefully making the path quite a bit easier for so many that would follow her. I'd like to tell a quick story that I think summarizes my mom's time on the job and how she changed so many hearts and minds. It starts with her as a young patrol officer, badgering a tactical sergeant in her district over the fact that there were no women on the district's tactical team, and in fact that there had been no women on the district's tactical team. The sergeant, Russ Schaefer, who became a near and dear friend to my mom over the years, had the foresight many didn't at the time and gave her a shot. In either a strategic move or one of complete luck, Russ partnered my mom with Pete, who, as the story goes, was a bit uncertain about partnering with a woman. You can't blame him. This was new territory at the time. Russ asked Pete to give it till the end of the tour, and if he didn't want to work with my mom, Russ would reassign him. Shortly after, Pete and my mom got a call of a man with a gun. They respond. My mom jumps out of the passenger seat before Pete can even get his seatbelt off. Pete's not slow, but he's about 6'5" and just takes a little more movement to get out of a vehicle than my mom did. She caught the man. He got a gun off the street. Pete shortly popped into Russ's office, kind of looked around the corner and said, hey, Sarge, I think we're going to be good. And the two remained partner for several years after that, and also became close family friends. This story was repeated in different ways as she rose up through the ranks, conquering not only being, one of the, few females in the department, but also a lesbian member of the department. Eventually, she became the sergeant and then lieutenant of that tactical team that had previously never had a female, eventually becoming commander of the Chicago's Mass Transit Division. And I believe that she changed many people's minds, not just about hers, but others like her along the way. I also can't talk about my mom without mentioning the dozens of animals she rescued over the years. And when I say dozens, it may be 100 plus. Countless of them ended up living with us, and many more adopted out to any family she could find that would not provide them a good home. In fact, there are many stories of officers calling her through the years when they would find a family of dogs or cats living in an abandoned home or something like that. It was always call Nancy and she'll come take care of these animals. And while her career in animal rescue are to be admired, I think her greatest pride was her family. She was an amazing mom. She loved Joanne deeply. It was with Joanne that she seemed to finally find happiness and contentment in life. She was really the fun grandma to her grandkids. One of my favorite memories of her was once she had broken her ankle and was at the splash pad with them in a wheelchair, in her bathing suit, going through the sprinklers with her grandchildren, because that's just the kind of person she was. She was an amazing person in so many ways, and there's so many stories I could tell here today. We miss her greatly. I want to finish by expressing my appreciation to all those being remembered today. I'm sure each one has touched more lives than any of you know. Thank you.
As Christopher said, Joanne is here, her 3 grandchildren, her daughter-in-law, and her son-in-law. Can I please have Kat Sierra McGuire to the stage? Kat is Pat's wife and will be sharing their story.
Scott just said very reluctantly, I wasn't supposed to be the one doing this, and I have a paralyzing fear of public speaking, so please bear with me. Plus, trying to get through this without crying is going to be near impossible, but thank you, Scott and Charger, for organizing this event, and to the Fallen Heroes Fund for all that you do. I'm listening to everybody's stories here today, and how they face the respective challenges in their careers. And Pat Lee certainly had her share of those. It shines a spotlight on just how important it is to bring attention to all the men and women who have blazed the trail for others to follow behind them. As Scott said, I'm Kathleen Sierra McGuire, Kat to my friends, and I want to introduce my wife, Pat Sierra. She was my wife, my love for 24 years. I lost her on April 19th of last year, just shy of her 75th birthday. She spent 34 years with the Chicago Fire Department as a paramedic. We met back in 1998 on AOL, when AOL was still dial-up. And there were no dating apps. In fact, apps had not yet been invented. And only the true techies knew how to send a picture. So we were exchanging emails for months before we had pretty much a blind date. But to say the date went well is an understatement. We spent 6 hours at dinner. They had to ask us to leave the restaurant. And the rest is history. At the time, I was working for a hotel management company and was spending 40 weeks a year on the road. So it made dating a little bit difficult. But once we got together, and her passion for medicine and emergency medicine was so infectious that I decided I wanted to change careers. I was an accountant at the time. She sent me back to nursing school. And she used to joke and tell everybody she was doing it selfishly so that someday I would take care of her when she had to be fed mashed bananas. She didn't know how almost true that was. Oh, I lost my place. I'm so sorry. She fell into the career of EMS. That was not ever her intended goal. She was dating a woman who happened to be going to nursing school back in 1975 and met some of her friends who said they were going to go take this emergency medicine course. You know what it was? She said, that sounds like fun. So she did it and had a passion for it. It fit her like a hand in glove. And back then, paramedics, I don't know if anybody knows this, but it was a very, very primitive career at the time. It was started by field medics coming back from Vietnam and looking for a way to help and bring that experience into their communities. And so that's how the paramedic field began. When she started working on an ambulance, she had to provide her own blood pressure cuff, stethoscope, intubation equipment. They had no supplies. It was very, very new and primitive. She took the exams for both Chicago Fire Department and the police department, excuse me, but knew it would be a long time before she heard from them. So she started a private ambulance company with one of her friends and a fellow that had taken the EMS course with her. She finally got a call in '78 from the CFD. She sold her share in the ambulance to a friend and joined CFD and never looked back. She wanted the busiest house in the city. Wherever it was, she was there. She would go take every shift she could. She absolutely loved working in the field, loved working with the community. After she'd been on the ambulance for about 8 years, she finally got the call from the police department and couldn't decide what she wanted to do, but she had just been promoted to field chief, so she's like, I'm not gonna start over again. But honestly, her passion, she really wanted to be a police officer. So she started in 1978 on the CFD. 8 months later, she was promoted to field chief. She worked every ambulance house in the city for 12 years. In '94, she was promoted again to the Chief of EMS Training, making her the highest ranking out member of a municipal fire department at that time. In 2000, she was promoted again to Deputy Chief Paramedic in charge of the north side of the city. She was responsible for over 500 paramedics. EMS certainly had come a long way from where she started. In 2002, she got her master's degree from Loyola University in Industrial Relations. In 2004, she had her final promotion to District Chief Director of the CFD Personnel. It was a very stressful position, and she was missing and yearning to be back in the field. Also, but alas, it was not to be true. In 2005, she suffered from a heart attack and had stents surgically placed. She very much wanted to return to work, but continued having uncontrollable chest pains and had to go out on disability. That move was very difficult for her. The fire department was a huge part of her identity. She was very, very proud of her career, and it would take me hours, if not days, to highlight all of the heroic acts and accomplishments she achieved in her career. But the thing that brought her the most joy was the people she mentored. She had a policy of hand out and hand up. And with each promotion, she was able to bring along and bring in as many LGBTQ members and as many women as she could. There is now an LGBTQ woman who she mentored, who now outranks her as a deputy fire commissioner. Pat's incredibly proud of her, was. In 2022, Pat was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She faced the diagnosis and the subsequent treatment with the same determination and grit as she faced everything else in her life. Following many setbacks, including a series of strokes, development of diabetic ulcers, and finally systemic organ failure, I knew that she'd finally met a challenge she would not be able to conquer. Pat's enthusiasm, never mind. I loved being a nurse, and because she put me through nursing school, I fortuitously ended up specializing in home health and hospice, for which I'll forever be grateful that I was educated and equipped to take care of her and to selfishly keep her with me for as long as humanly possible. She was a trailblazer, a fierce art advocate, and larger than life. Her absences left a huge hole in the lives of all of us that knew her and our 2 fur babies, Katie and Drake. She believed there were no strangers in the world, only friends she hadn't met yet. And I'll close with a quote from Pat on her advice to those following in her footsteps. Educate yourself as much as you can, never give up on your goals, never accept defeat, and never let them see you sweat. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Can I please have Chief of Police Rich Randolph to the stage? Rich was good friends with Bear, as most people knew him, and will be sharing his story.
I want to thank Scotty and everyone who assisted in making this possible. This is my 3rd one I've been to, and I'm always impressed. I'm also humbled to hear all these stories that you've all shared, so bear with me. I'm not going to be able to match some of the speeches I've heard today, but I'm going to do my best. Hello, everyone. My name is Rich Randolph. I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you about Mark Hartness, Dr. Mark Hartness, commonly known as Bear. And when I first met him, I'm like, he had told me, and I'm sure Scotty could relate because we were looking at each other, you could call me Bear. And I was like, this is kind of weird, but okay. And it grew on you real quick. He had that dynamic personality. And I'm going to outline some of the things about Bear that showed. Mark Hartness, or we would all know as Bear, passed away in March of 2018. He's missed by all of us. And he touched so many lives in our organization, Protect and Defend. For those of you who don't know, Bear was a psychiatric technician at Pelican Bay State Prison for many years. This is the state of California's highest supermax prison, very violent. Bear didn't talk much about his work, but one thing that he did share with all of us is he had to leave because he was attacked by inmates. And as a result of that injury and that attack, it forever put him into a cane. He always had to have a cane. Then he went to a walker, and then eventually he needed a wheelchair. Bear was very, very smart, loved to talk to people, and the resources that he did were Protect and Defend. He had 3 master's degrees, and he was a certified thanatologist, which he had to go to the UK to get that certification. He was very proud to talk about that. And Bear was the type of person where if we got a phone call or an email for the member, I'd call him up and I'm there for him, and we'd put him on the phone. My experience with Bear started with crossing of many paths with him at Party in the Desert. He was always there for us. Party in the Desert is a party we get together every year in July in Palm Springs. Who would go to Palm Springs in July at 110-degree weather? That is crazy, right? It is absolutely crazy, but it is a tradition. I heard the word trailblazing. I love that word because Scotty and I have talked about it. It is a tradition that was trailblazed by people ahead of or prior to us 45 years ago, and we've just maintained that tradition. And with cold beverages and a crisp pool and good laughs and memories, we're able to get through the weekend. And Bear would travel, drive out, fly out, and sit in his wheelchair in the hot sun just to be there with all of us. But it wasn't just being there. Bear would see someone having an issue, and he would go right up to them. Up to a person poolside, and before we all knew it, they were pouring out their stress and trauma to him. And so Bear started setting up stress talks with people every Saturday morning. In the last several years of Bear's life, even with the wheelchair, he needed additional assistance with us, getting him from point A to point B. This usually meant sometimes having to push his wheelchair to the restaurant across the street, and he would always say, God, it's so hot out here, but I'm just glad to be out here with all of you. I just want to be there to assist you guys the best I can. He loved service, and it's a popular term that I think of back home, service before self. It's not the same without knowing, Protect and Defend is not the same without knowing that Bear will not roll out to the pool at some point or ask you to roll him somewhere. So every year, this year in the summer, we put his picture out and we do a little moment of silence for him. It's definitely different not to have him calling us, quote, dear men, or saying, you guys all take such good care of old Bear. Bear loved helping all of us, and he loved what he did, which was speaking to people about stress and saving lives. And in the spirit of Bear, please remember the small things you do that make huge differences in others' lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Can I please have Father Jim back to the stage?
Good afternoon again. Thank you, everyone who have come to this memorial. We ask that you remember in some way each of these fallen. Remember, we have your back. We hold the line for you, each in our own way. Be strong in those words to your family and friends, even the stranger in need. Make this community stronger by being strong for each other. Let the world hear the strength in your voice, in your laughter, in your tears of memory. I pray you all stay safe, not only as we remember these honorees and all honored this day, but as you return home.
Thank you, Jim. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. The Fairfax County Police Department for providing Chief Davis safely here. As you heard from my story, it resonates with me that it's 10 years and he was there then and he was here today. If you know any LGBT police, fire, EMS, and military members that you would like to see honored, please reach out to us, let us know. Our information is in the program today. For all of you that have received the gifts, the flags, and the artwork today, we have additional items for you off to the side. Please see us before you leave. And also, we will ship them to you if you are flying and can't take them with you. The LGBT Fallen Heroes Fund continues to evolve. We have purchased land here in Washington, D.C. in the historic Congressional Cemetery. The goal is to have a physical memorial where the names of all of our heroes will be listed. We hope to kick off the design phase in the near future. I would like to thank the Arlington County Police Department for their honor guard presence, and Corporal Jennifer Levy for singing the national anthem again for us this year. We need to thank Officer Rose Barceau, who does this artwork that you received today. She does one of these for every police officer that is killed in the line of duty. And she's done that since day one for us. And lastly, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We can't do it without your attendance, and I appreciate everything. Thank you.